Marty Cohn, and welcome to PR Benefits, a show that explores the role of public relations in the COVID-19 era. I've been a public relations practitioner for over 45 years, helping a wide array of organizations successfully communicate their messages to targeted audiences. I mistakenly thought that 9/11 would be the watershed event in my lifetime. Communicating in the aftermath of that tragic event was challenging. Then came the global economic downturn in 2008 with more lessons in crisis communications. But 12 years later, we have the coronavirus pandemic, and new challenges in uncharted waters have emerged. My guest today is Tony Vann, a seasoned public relations professional in Oklahoma who is president of Vann and Associates PR and Marketing. Tony, stay back because I got a lot to say about you now.
Yeah.
Tony Vann is a proven public relations and communications professional with more than 20 years of experience in media relations, state and federal government relations, marketing communications, and nonprofit administration. Prior to founding Vann and Associates, he served as president of Christian Companion Senior Care, a national franchise corporation offering services for seniors in their own homes. His career also includes, ready? Communications Director for Oklahoma Lieutenant Governor Mary Fallin, Development Director for the Oklahoma City National Memorial, Public Relations Director at Oklahoma State University in Oklahoma City, as well as the Legislative Assistant to the House Republican Leader in Oklahoma House of Representatives. If that's not enough, he has the claim of being the first creator and instructor of a distance learning political science class in the state of Oklahoma. Welcome, Tony.
Goodness, I am glad to be here, and thank you for the rousing introduction, Marty. It's great to be here.
The whole show could have been just doing your resume.
Done. We're
all
out.
right. Thank you very much.
Done.
All right, but listen, things that weren't covered. Here, what I want to know is, how did you get started in public relations?
Thanks. Like anyone, I basically about 30 years ago decided what I was going to do for the rest of my life, what I want to be when I grow up. And so I like two things. One thing is I loved politics, and two, I loved media. I was a news hound. I loved current events. I loved all of that. So when I went to school, basically I studied political science and mass communications. Those were kind of your two choices, if you will.
Right.
Once I did that, I got out of school, and things just happened. So I was really lucky enough to bounce into a mentor that was the House Republican leader, House Minority Leader in the legislature. He was a gristled newspaper man as well. That's what he kind of did all of his life. He was a newspaper publisher. He was exactly who you thought he would be. He was that guy with the big mustache and the big cigar and gruff, and would talk about cut lines and all of the stuff. But what I learned from him about the media, basically keeping my mouth shut for almost 2 years, was the fact that the media are looking for stories. They have a lot of content to fill. We see news as a casual observer and just sit down at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock and watch that. But that's a lot of content that needs to be created. It has to be unique content, it has to be important, and it has to be timely. And so he taught me basically how to position all of that. After that, candidly, he's remained my mentor to this day, but I was fortunate enough to go to the next phase, which was with the National Memorial and so on and so forth. I want to allude a little bit to your opening. You are so correct. When I graduated college in the mid 90s, 1995, April 19th, 1995, Oklahoma City had the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah building. I thought, candidly, at that time, that was the worst thing that could ever happen. Like you said, we had the first attempt on the World Trade Center. Of course, it was somewhat foiled, but did have impact. It wasn't until 9/11, of course, then you think, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing that can ever happen. This is our Pearl Harbor. This is our Kennedy, whatever that is. And today we find ourselves literally in the midst of closing down arguably, without being political, one of the world's richest economies. And where do we go from there? And candidly, from a PR and a marketing aspect, how do we help our clients? What is happening? How do we message for them? And I guess my final is how I got here is I love playing chess mentally. And what I always tell kids, I do a lot of mentoring, is when you're looking at PR, the reality is you're playing a chess game every day. The problem is you don't know if you're going to wake up on the black side of the board or the white side of the board. And sometimes, candidly, you could be in the middle of the game and someone will flip it. And that's what I love and hate about this industry, candidly. So,
all right. So I want to break it down a little bit. So 1995, you're doing the memorial. You found your own agency. Let's think about life pre-COVID-19. What would you say was some highlights of your pre-COVID-19 career? I'm assuming the helping with the memorial is one up there.
Yeah, I mean, I writing or co-writing legislation, federal markup legislation for the $24.1 million memorial was obviously one of those. Raising the money to build that through public-private funds, obviously a big part of that. Candidly, you get wins all the way through. One of the things that we were really involved with on a crisis communication situation, two things. We had an amusement park here in Oklahoma that was wiped out by the May 2013 tornado.
Right.
We were able to basically work with those folks for about 3 months, plus or minus, to bring their business from zero destruction. Luckily, no one was killed, but the impact was horrific, to basically September reopening and keeping engagement throughout that process. One of the things you talked about is crisis communications. Funny thing, our debate internally is, what is a crisis now? So, for instance, we handled a group with a family member that was beheaded at the workplace. So it was a Vann food factory, or a food factory here in Oklahoma, and it was an HR issue. And without going into it, the employee left the work site, went home, got a machete, brought it back to the workplace, and began assaulting the employees. So we represented the family of unfortunately the woman that was killed, beheaded at the place. And that obviously is a crisis. That's a problem. We look at Corona today, and we look at our clients, whether they're car dealerships, distilleries, quick service restaurants, special events. Everyone is in a crisis. So it's like everyone's screaming, but yet no one can be heard, lack of a better term.
Right.
And so crisis has taken this next step, which is, what do you do in a crisis? Well, we try to always be transparent. We try to always provide as much accuracy as possible without speculating or overstating. And then the final piece is, we try to frame the content so that it will be picked up. One of the things about PR is that, you're very truthful, but you want to make sure that your client's perspective is told. That's the story that's told. And so we ran into a lot of folks in the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic that either became bullies, or they didn't want to tell the truth, or they were concerned about, keeping things that none of us like to talk about, financial issues, employee issues. And at some point, you just have to explain to folks that honesty and trust and transparency rates way higher for public communication than holding something or hiding something and then releasing 200 employees at a restaurant, or having to, file for bankruptcy when the day before you said you were just fine. There are just some truths to all of that.
Sure. All right. So, now are you working from home?
Yeah. So we do both. So we've gotten into a hybrid situation.
Right.
No judgment, no political stuff here. Candidly, Oklahoma reopened with a phase 1 situation about 2 weeks ago. We have been lucky or blessed, whatever it is, with a reduction in the majority of folks that are testing higher, a reduction in the folks in the hospital, those type of things. And so the governor has stated that we're going to move towards a May 15th phase 2, and hopefully by the end of month will be. Let me be honest. I don't know that there will be a normal within the next quarter or so, or maybe even the next year, but as normal as possible. So our office currently is working about 1 day a week. We have sanitation stations. We do all the social distancing. We're not allowing any visitors to come in. We're doing full masking, the full everything CDC says, and then in midst triaging into more flexible schedules throughout the rest of the month. So.
All right. So Tony, as part of a full disclaimer here,
Sure.
in 1978, the blizzard of 1978 in Massachusetts, then Governor Mike Dukakis told all non-essential personnel to stay at home. And that it was in February of 1978 where I realized that I was non-essential. So I stay at home, and I've been staying at home since. But all kidding aside, so now we're in this COVID-19, and I'm really glad that things are opening up in Oklahoma.
Sure.
What are you doing for your clients during the COVID-19? Right now.
That's a great question. We are doing everything we can to be as honest and open counsel as possible.
Right.
The litany of clients in which we had were impacted at a very high level. I joke with my business partner that the only thing we needed was an airline for us to have a straight flush. So you're talking about quick service restaurants, amusement parks, large special events, rodeos, basically car dealership, Jeep dealer, everything just boom. So what we're trying to do for those folks is get them in a situation where they continue engagement, but shifting it online.
Right.
That's easier said than done, candidly. Quick service restaurant, Burger King, there are some national oversights with that. There are some additional waivers that they have to perform, not only federally but obviously locally. One of the heroes, if you will, out of our group was a liquor dispensary. They made at the beginning they made moonshine, vodka, scotch, whiskey, and now they are making hand sanitizer like nobody's business, and they're donating it, and it's fantastic. That all being said, kind of the joke, but not really, if a tree falls in the middle of the woods and no one's there to hear it, it never happened. Same thing. It's very interesting to get this mindset where people are doing great things, and they're not doing the great things to get the publicity, but it's important to tell that story, not only because, you want them to survive post, whatever that looks like, but you need to let people know what you're doing so that municipalities outside can either get or buy the sanitizer, so on and so forth. So it's been a lot of education, candidly, Marty.
Right.
There's been a lot of counsel. We maintain a lot of our clients' online reputation through social media, websites. We have seen a huge number of increases. We probably had 25 or 30% increase in business for either current clients or new clients that are doing website,
Right.
digital advertising, digital placement, geofencing, those type of things.
Wow.
So that's been an interesting shift.
Right.
So yeah.
All right. Well, then let me segue into another question then.
Okay.
So, they're calling it the new normal. What do you think will be the role of public relations as we move into this new normal?
That, Marty, that is the gazillion-dollar question.
Well, that's why I'm asking you, Tony.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah, please mark my words.
Yeah.
Let me kind of go pre-coronavirus and at least talk about what we saw as a change in PR. And I know that each segment is different. You obviously do much different public relations than we do. I haven't touched a nuclear plant, since 3 Mile Island, and that's why I've got this funny gray streak. I mean, there's some right, exactly. So, but the reality is that we started seeing PR as we knew it go from the front to the back. In other words, what we started seeing with folks that are social media influencers, that are journalists. I mean, everyone with one of these is a journalist, right? There it is. It's a magic phone. It comes in and out. Is a journalist. And so what we started seeing is our brands, our companies, our clients were doing marketing at the beginning, and then to give legs to that marketing and give it third-party credibility, they tried to get that on the news, lack of a better term, and that's what PR is. I think, my opinion is, I think that amps up. What I think is that news media, because of some limitation with social distancing, I don't know that we're going to go into the studio like we used to. We get jazzed about going on the morning show and cooking some eggs or talking about what we're doing for a fundraiser. I don't know that that's going to happen, at least in the short term. What I do see are folks that are positioning themselves as a media source or as a PR source, a third-party source, to try to gain that credibility. But candidly, it's probably closer to what I used to call an advertorial or something like that, where it's kind of a pay-to-play option.
Right.
Unfortunately, what we lose, and I truly believe this, is that journalist. And I think that you probably have seen it just as much as I have. That newspaper journalist, that assignment editor, that person that is truly looking for a great story is gone, or is leaving and it makes it very difficult from a PR standpoint, because I don't know who to contact, and I have to talk to usually a salesperson before I can ever talk to a producer or a director or someone on the the news side anyway. And unfortunately, that's where we at least see it in our market is, the marketing side is pushing forth and the PR is just kind of cleaning it up, which it's sad. I'm just like you. I mean, you've been practicing longer than I have. I'm coming up, I think, 28 years this year or something close to that. When I started, and you probably did this too, and I tell this to my staff, we would mail press releases. My staff has no idea what the word embargo means.
Right.
But we would mail that press release, and you would have to get that calendar back so that you knew when that was going to hit. And then you got a fax machine, which we thought we were pros with faxes, and then emails. Now, most of it is social media or one-on-one pitches. And then, like I said, candidly, a lot of the times when we talk to the media side or the news side, they'll pitch us over to basically a paid opportunity that will then parlay as added value a news segment that's really not a news segment. It's a sponsored piece in the news cycle. So that breaks my heart.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what's the big daily newspaper in Oklahoma?
So in Oklahoma City, it's the Oklahoman, and in Tulsa, it's the Tulsa World. So we have two large ones. The Oklahoman just stopped printing and sends all of their print up to Tulsa, which is about 100 miles away. And so the media or the stories that are in the Oklahoman, which is supposed to be the capital paper, the statewide paper, if you will,
right,
those stories are often stale due to the print timing, and they've just gone through, I think, 4th or 5th round of layoffs. A lot of my good friends are just not there. They just have digital editors and contributors. I mean, you could write a story for the Oklahoman and probably see your byline on there just because they're looking for content. There's a lot of white people. So,
and do you think that that's something that's going to continue?
Oh yeah. I mean, I love the newspaper business. I love holding a newspaper.
Right.
I have several good friends that are publishers. I have a good friend in Colorado that publishes in the northern part of Colorado, and they all see it, and I hate it. But advertisers are not there. If people think that newspapers make their money by throwing papers on porches, They could give that away. That's not where they made the money. The money is the circulars or the ads. And if people aren't taking the paper or reading the paper, then advertisers go away. They go someplace else. And that's the death of the paper. That's just it.
So when you're again thinking ahead,
Sure.
you've got a client that is trying to reach its target audience. With newspapers, print media, unfortunately going down. What do you think is going to be the best media source for your clients and for businesses in Oklahoma?
The best media source today is basically internet or TV, straight media, straight objective media. That's it, in my opinion. Especially during the coronavirus, people are home. And so just like you, just like us, most of the time we're looking at this big square monitor, whether it's this screen or a small screen. So you want to get that video. The problem, as you guys probably deal with as well, a lot of times the media, especially now, have to have prepackaged pieces. They want you maybe to take the video or the individual to take video with their phone and send it. That's a whole new world too, because guys like me are somewhat control freaks. So I want that, I want that B-roll to look nice, right? I want those images to look amazing. And what we're getting is kind of a Blair Witch Project kind of thing going on, where it's a little not as polished, but people are, the level of acceptance for that is dropping. So and then candidly, I'll go back. The reality is, if you want to reach consumers, in my opinion,
right,
that goes back to targeted display. So you're at home watching The Tiger King on Netflix. You need pre-roll. You need in-video advertising. You need something there. If you are sitting at home and you have, say, a senior care company, right, and you're trying to figure out how to battle the negative effects of the coronavirus, you need to look at where your salespeople are, trying to hit, and try to basically geofence or IP target those folks that are looking on Facebook, that are trying to figure out if it's still safe for their mom or dad to be there. And it's not just sales, it's branding. It's talking about these are the steps we're taking. We're listening to the CDC, blah, 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 because it just is what it is. So
right. Well, I have to say, Tony, that I'm glad in some respects that I'm on this end of my career than on the other end, because I think it's going to be difficult. But I'm optimistic in terms of, I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities as well in this new normal, after COVID-19. Tony, thank you so much for coming on PR Benefits, and thank you for all you're doing in Oklahoma and in other places. And more importantly, stay healthy.
My pleasure. Thank you, Marty. You too.
All right. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on PR Benefits.